विश्वं दर्पणदृश्यमाननगरी तुल्यं निजान्तर्गतं पश्यन्नात्मनि मायया बहिरिवोद्भूतं यथा निद्रया यः साक्षात् गुरुते प्रबोधसमये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयं तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये। शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। Thank you so much for spending this Sunday afternoon with us. Many of you have driven from Los Angeles and even further. I especially thank you for coming for this event. I would like to especially extend my thanks to Srijana and Brother Madhukar. This is your effort. For 2 years, tirelessly, 18 chapters in 18 events, you make it happen. And I hope we can have many more of these get-together in which we can try to understand. I'm not one of those who has the claims of the truth, the wisdom, the knowledge. You can go to the seekers for that. If you come to us, you come for questions. Sometimes we think we already have the questions. The only problem is we don't have the right type of questions. Having questions, sometimes we even have answers, do not mean anything. There are 3 questions that fundamentally matter for any conscious subject. The first question is, who am I? Do not jump into conclusion from this is what the Shankaracharya say and Madhva say and Sankhya say and Christians say, and do not look for answer. Make your life as a constant seeking. When you get the answer, then the seeking stops. Who am I is the first question and the foremost question. The next immediately is because this I immediately separates something outside, something you. Yusmad asmat pratyaya gocharayoho, Shankara begins his commentary. What is this world? What am I experiencing? The sense data. What is this? And the third question is, what am I ought to do? What am I supposed to do? We do things all the time, starting from crying instantaneously of our birth to gasping the last moment of our death. Even dying itself counts as action. So, sleeping and dying, of course, there is no real suspension of action. Nahi deha vrita shakyam tyaktum karmanya sheshataha. We keep doing actions. But what am I ought to do in a real sense of action? And these are the 3 questions that I would like you all to read the Bhagavad Gita again. When we read Bhagavad Gita and then let me find God's blessing and all, if I chant it, it is going to be so amazing and good for you. But let's pose these questions before we open the text. The chapter 18, as I have said, I will talk on, is a moksha sannyasa yoga. It's already sannyasa, renunciation embedded with it. And it's so amazing. Our Guru Shankara has been the prima facie position, the Purva Paksha, for all the objections that have come afterward. And it is also amazing to go back and revisit what happened in the past 1200 years in history to try to understand and make sense if these texts can speak to us again. And again, we have tried to resolve the issue, the tension of Dvaitas and Advaita, dualism and non-dualism, karma and jnana, action and liberation or wisdom, and the contradiction between or the compromise between, and then never been able to actually find a total solace. I'm gonna ask us to do something more radical. What do you do if you are a data scientist? You have the data, you have processed this again and again 20 times, and then you do not like the answer. You have to go back and do more sampling. So let's go to China and sample from Dao De Jing. That's what I meant by a very radical proposition. The concept of Wu Wei, action without action, it will help us understand what Shankara is trying to say by non-action. So my focus today is not even the entire 18th chapter, will be on select verses, and even those select verses I will read only with an intent to understand two words, very basic. In all the North Indian dialects, it is still used, spoken. One is svadharma. In Bengal, in Punjab, it's always used like Hindi, Marathi, Nepali. Another is Prakriti. Svabhava and Prakriti. If we try to understand Bhagavad Gita, going back to the text itself, and try to understand in what sense these words are used, and then try to read Shankara again, that in what sense he could have rejected karma, or in what sense he would have accommodated karma in life. Only two simple words with immense benefit. Because this is about time we need to reread Bhagavad Gita, because number one, everybody reads this. Except for many of us. Because it's popular, you know. It's offensive to ask anybody, have you read the Bhagavad Gita? It's just understood that we haven't read it, you know. We have misunderstood. Sometimes misunderstandings stem from two different grounds. Once we are not able to understand the history, the philosophy, the background, and the deeper meaning. Other times understanding comes from our intention. We want to misunderstand it. And particularly that is very meaningful these days in the age of misinformation. And so, if we really want to understand Bhagavad Gita, not trying to make it beautiful, not trying to make it ugly, just wanting to understand what it is about. Therefore, we should go back to read the text. For what? Some would say, okay, Krishna teaches Arjuna to do his duty. Is Arjuna actually doing his duty? Is that what we can derive by reading Bhagavad Gita. Some would go even further, in a more shallow way, to defend his dharma. We are trying to make Arjuna some kind of suicide bomber, he's fighting to defend his dharma. They also believe that they are fighting to defend his dharma. We would go, okay, Shankara says, just give up all your actions, Arjuna, because actions are not going to... This is a teaching, by the way, a really private conversation between Krishna and Arjuna. And then, fortunately, there is Sanjay and there is Vyasa, and of course we get to know that in that chain. So we get to know that, okay, well, Krishna tells Arjuna to give up all the actions and so that he can just go to war. That even doesn't make sense. That's just a plain contradiction. Fortunately, this is the concluding chapter, chapter 18, and this is where svabhava is discussed extensively. So this is where I find the solution to these things. Both terms have many meanings. I mean prakriti and svabhava. But I'm reading only in the context of self-nature. Your own inherent nature. Your own intrinsic nature. This is the svabhava of water. To have two hydrogen and one oxygen atoms. So if we are giving that equation, for everything has a svabhava. This is the svabhava of the sun to shine, the light, and to heat, to cook things. This is the svabhava of the sun. The sun also has svabhava. Fire has a svabhava to heat, water to cool. Svabhava. And in the Bhagavad Gita, there also prakriti is used in the same meaning, but sometimes in a different meaning, in the Sankhya meaning. So let me try to first read in the sense of svabhava. Hypothetically, let us say if svabhava can answer any of our questions. True colors, in our English language, in his own true colors, he's coming in his own true colors, has a very negative connotation. That true colors always mean something bad, something ugly. There is something always we need to mask to hide that disgusting filth, something that cannot be shared. Very negative. When I say that, if you go back to your svabhava, you will find the most amazing being, the very Brahman, Lord Krishna inside Ishvara Sarvabhutanam, Riddeshe Arjunatishthati, Brahman Sarvabhutani, Yantrarudhani Maya. You are the most amazing being, the God himself, and that's what you are going to find in your svabhava. The opponent, the objection to svabhava thesis would be there is no svabhava of anything. Nagarjuna would be my teacher on that, but there are many others. Svabhava does not exist. Nothing has its own inherent intrinsic nature. So, let's take the rice grains. If you throw the rice grains, seedlings come. You have to throw them in the proper ground with water and proper season. If you just take the husk out, the outside bark out, and throw the rice out, I like to grow rice and take a little bit from your pan and the white rice, brown rice, it does not grow. The svabhava of the rice grain is only applicable to when it is whole, when its svabhava is not intervened. When all the svabhavas are, all the constituents of the svabhava are available. There are many seeds in the nature. If you go to the desert flower, if you go to see Anjabarigo desert flower, there are some of the flowers, I'm amazed, some people told me, bloom only once in 12 years. The seeds of these flowers are waiting for 12 years, waiting for their time. They have some kind of clock, okay? I don't know, I haven't seen like what size. There's some kind of programming within that constitute the svadharma of the seed. To activate Pratibandha and Abhyanugya. Bhartiya, a 5th century philosopher, discusses this in his chapter on time, that even a singular seed has this suspension and activation. And that is what allows them to come. So who is it that, you know, the cuckoo, the birds only sing in a particular way when the spring comes and not year round? They have a specific svabhava to sing in a particular way in that particular time. This morning we're talking about we not misguided, because someone like, okay, eating wild fruit, you know. When I had a friend from North Dakota and we were just out in forest in San Diego and we had water, and then I was just trying some lemon berry, you know, they're like sour seeds, and then I tried to, like, you know, my friend, and then after like 5-10 minutes he thought he could just die, you know. Because now we as humans have forgotten what is given by the nature. I haven't seen, like, have you heard some birds just ate poisonous seeds in the forest and they all died, or the wild animals eating the fruits growing in the nature, some animals, deers grazing in poisonous mushrooms and dying? They are in their svabhava. If we go back to our svabhava, it doesn't count as acting. It doesn't need the agency. So allow me to create 2 types of agency now, for the ease, not to go to deeply theological terms like God and soul and those things. One is your ego or active agent, the self, that subject that you always think you are and you believe you are, and that allows you to go for a dance, watch a movie and turn on TV and, you know, do whatever you like to do. And the second thing is the subject sometimes sleeps, like in your deep sleep state. This active agent gives up. Sometimes when you are perplexed, sometimes when you are shocked, horrified, you are amazed, bewildered, delighted, in that extreme ecstatic state, even in your amorous play. This subject gives up. There is a deeper agency there. Something automatic kicks in. Something that allows you to keep on going. Many years back, when I met Master Baba, I saw how someone could be free from this active, constituted agency and live a life. This is not some theory to me. So now, if we go actually to consider that maybe, let me think what is talking about, svabhava and prakriti. What is my svabhava? What is my prakriti? So that in the nature, there is no duplicity. There is no repetition. The Lord talks of, you know, this difference and repetition, but ultimately he does acknowledge the uniqueness, you know, so that's for the uniqueness. So this is this, look at us, everybody has a unique face. Go back to just check one plant in your backyard and check every single leaf. Every leaf is unique. There is no repetition. There is something intrinsically, inherently programmed in us that makes us who we are, and then there is an imposition on us that you are 2, 3 years old, 4 years old. Your mom says you have to be a doctor, your dad says you have to be an engineer. That is not your svadharma. That is an imposition on you, a programming that is written on top of you. It could have been your svadharma, I don't know. But then all your life you keep living that delusion imposed on you, and you create your reality surrounding that false misguided ego that you believe you are, and then everything around you needs to be interpreted accordingly. Your very subjectivity is a misguided delusional construction, a societal, familial, cultural construction. And Shankara wants that you erase that. And that level of agency is always a dangerous agency. When a very misguided person wants to help you, don't take his help. When a dangerous man comes with medicine and wants to feed you, save yourself and run away. Because this world as a chaos is not because of passive people. Some passive people do not destroy the harmony of the world. They may destroy their whole life. Ganja smokers, they might be just passive, running in a corner, not recommending that. Delusional subjects destroy the world. Misguided subjects destroy the world. People who believe what action is and take that action onto them. People who believe God wants them to do, that is the worst type of delusion. You are so important now all of a sudden that God has a special task given to you. Out of how many trillion galaxies, out of each galaxy having how many trillion stars, and we don't even know how many planets are there. And think of the history, think of now, think of impossible infinite time tomorrow, and it is you. You are the only one who will make that difference. You know what Krishna does? Krishna doesn't tell him to do this or that. I'm sorry, he does not. Rite pitva na bhavishyanti sarve. That's what Krishna says. Arjuna, if you are really worried what will happen to this world, you are really insignificant, okay? I don't want to tell you in this way, but whatever is to happen is going to happen. It feels great to think that God has a special job for me, It's about ego, not the base thing, not the foundational stuff. The manifest ego. And we have created a narrative. And we want Bhagavad Gita to tell us what we want to hear. If we are willing to not control this text and let the text speak, I would read a couple of verses and stop there. Kamyanam karmanam nyasam sannyasam kavayo viduhu sarva karma phalatyagam prahustyagam vichakshana. When we have the kamyanam karmanam nyasam, what is sannyasa? Can we stop acting, being guided by greed or hatred? That is all kamya means. Kamya means sukha dukkha. I want sukha, I want to avoid dukkha. Sukha means happiness, dukkha means suffering. At all costs, I don't want to suffer, and I have to be happy. So sannyasa simply means to stop doing things to feel good or to avoid feeling not so great. This whole, pursuit of happiness, look at the result. We all are here, how happy everybody is. We have lived in this delusion for multiple 100 years now, right? That is why the pursuit of happiness allows us to keep buying more and more things. We are turned into consumers, that's all. Our freedom lies in our capacity to spend so the people can make money out of our hard work labor. That's our pursuit for happiness. Karma phala tyaga. Many people have objected, some good philosophers counted, that you cannot act without anticipation to result. And it is like going back to the biblical era. Thou shalt not make baby, make love without for having children, Your happiness in the action is possible. Why do you play soccer game? Why do you watch television? Why do you make love? Why do you do anything you do that has no other goal, no instantaneous or long-term result? We play, we sing, we feel good at the moment when we sing. Nobody needs to clap. I sing alone all the time. Actions for Shankara are not when you have to be an agent and you have to be the person acting. It has to be your svabhava. You do not say, the sun, please shine today. Oh my gosh, imagine how our life would be if we had to just every morning look towards the east and pray to the sun, Lord, now please give us light, okay? And sun is, okay, today I'm very tired, I can't make light today. This is not svabhava. Whatever you do sometimes and not do other times is not your svabhava. When kindness becomes your svabhava, you become the Buddha. When love becomes your svabhava, you become Jesus. When action becomes your svabhava, you are Lord Krishna. And so nahi deha, because otherwise if Shankara, how would Shankara reconcile if he meant give up all the actions? Because the very chapter says, nahi deha vrita sakyam tyaktum karmandya sataha. Any embodied being cannot abandon all actions. Okay, they know that much. What is it then? Yasya naham krito bhavo buddhir yasya nalipyate hatva visa iman lokan nahantya nanivadhyate. When one does not have I am the doer, aham krita bhava, this, I have done this. Buddhi yasana, who is not diluted. I am the actor, look at my action, my result. I made this happen. I allow people to, get liberation. I'm God of Krishna. So, then, there is no agency there. There is no individual agency. There is this collective mutation of whatever the programming of the Prakriti going on that kicks in. We continue to do what we love to do, not what we are told to do. What we would eradicate beliefs and faiths in the sense that my actions are not guided because I have to believe this. My mom would otherwise get mad. If kindness becomes your svabhava, even though sometimes you may be little further from your true nature, you have nothing to worry about your true colors. That what if I see me inside, that is so disturbing me. I have to mask it by drinking or some drugs. This is masking of the ego. We would eradicate this problem once and for all. Sway karmanya virataha samsiddhim lavate. And that is where everybody has his or her own task. What is the objective of meditation? To get into that meditative state is not to close your eyes and feel good. At least in the sense of Bhagavad Gita, the way I have understood, what is it that constitutes you as you, not that ego? And that will allow you to do the true thing, the programming that we're born with, that residual karma that you came in this body, and you never got a chance to actually even explore that because you were given so many other programmings. The society said so, your wife told so, your husband wants you to do this, your children think this is not right, and you are trying to fit in the community. What you are ought to do is what is already programmed in you to do. This is already programmed in Arjuna. To engage in the fight, he is the best warrior. There's nobody in that entire battlefield better than Arjuna. What is he going to do when he sees inside? The arrow just come automatically. He doesn't even need to open his eyes to shoot an arrow. That is what he is good at. That has become his nature. You have to do what is your nature. But what if the people are going to die? People are going to die, okay? I'm sorry. People are going to die. Nobody is born immortal. This is not in that absolute sense pacifism. But this is absolutely not activism. This is Shobhavism, if I have to put ism. Go back to your true nature. Shreyam svadharmo vignaha paradharma sonasthita svadharme nidhanam shreyaha sobhavaniyatam karma purvannapnoti kilvisham. That's another one I have. Sobhavaniyatam. Everybody's action is determined, and if you act following that, what is there. And then Arjuna, Krishna says, Yad ahankaram asritya na yodseti manyase. Now, because Arjuna is telling Krishna, Krishna, I'm not going to fight, you know. Now, Krishna asks, who is this person I would like to see that is telling me that is not going to fight? If this is the Swabhava that is telling me, this is not my Swabhava, that is not in my nature, then you should absolutely not do that. But if it is just your ego talking, beyond good and bad, the worst evil is the agency constituted by your ego and the reality created by that ego, the delusion, the slumber that allows you to perpetually live in your dream and believe that you have lived a life. It is better to wake up to realize you are just a ghost than to believe that you are just a living, breathing being. Because sometimes awakenings are not very pleasant. Arjuna could not wake up to the realization that I'm like writing Mahabharata, I'm Veda Vyasa now, I'm a Brahmagyani. He could not wake up to that reality because that is not his reality, that is not his Swabhava. We can wake up to only our Swabhava. We cannot wake up to somebody else's Swabhava. Swabhava jena kaunteya nibaddha swena karmana kartum netsasi yanmoha karishya svasopita. You are guided to your action by your Swabhava. Whatever you say you are not going to do, you are saying that narrative to yourself, guided by delusion. You will do that because eventually you don't have the power, you don't have the strength to fight against your Swabhava. You can suspend for a little bit. you can halt that action for a moment. But if you let the true Svabhava, this is about allowing the best in you to come out, because nature has already programmed things. You are programming up on top of what nature has programmed, never even asking, mother, what is there in me for? What am I here for? So that Prakriti, I'm referring to Prakriti as the mother. That is also your Svabhava, your inner nature. What is at stake in your inner true nature? That is not constituted, that is not projected to conclude. We can again go back to, you know what, I'm just blank, I'm just zero, I have no Svabhava. Or maybe we should say, there is always some Svabhava in every time every entity comes into being. And that coming into being itself constitutes, determines that particular Svabhava. And it is in that Svabhava that we can never be misguided. That is the action. That is the goal of life. That is also liberation, actually. Liberation to me is not going to heaven. Liberation means what? Freedom. Freedom means what? We are not free, we are determined, you know. All our actions have been determined based on our body, tells us to do this and that, needs this and that, and our society wants this and that. But what if we could explore the deeper Svabhava within us? And in that, we would not need imposed life to continue. Our actions would be true actions and our own actions. And then the only problem is these actions would not be ours to own, because there is no ego at that level. This is an action happening on its own. Just like I said, the sun does not say, I have to shine. The fire does not say, I have to burn. These are the actions of the spontaneity that is expressing herself. In the last word for the Svabhava, Bhartiya uses an example of Mayura Anda Rasa Nyaya. It's a little long term. It's the maxim of the fluid, the yolk of the peacock egg. Make it simple. I don't know how many million arrays of color the feathers of peacock have. A lot. If you crack the egg open, look into it, all you see is just gray. You could be very wise and use microscope to try to see the colors. Okay, well, it is not visible, and say, okay, no, let me use electronic. No, nothing is going to happen. You are not going to see the color. That the Svabhava is already there in its latency, Shakti, in its latent form. Our diversities are also there. In that singular Brahman, like in that egg, Hiranyagarbha Samabhaktatagre, we are already in that cosmic egg, full with our multiple colors. We had to be these many colors. When we recognize this diversity in that most beautiful way of understanding Svabhava, we can understand the deeper meaning of our life and what am I ought to do. Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purna Purnamidachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.